Hello my friend, welcome back to Mulenge Speaks series. This is John here, your host. Today we are continuing with our Mulenge topics, and we will tackle part 20, and part 20 has two subtitles. One is subtitle A and the other one is subtitle B. So today we will do subtitle A. In subtitle A we will continue with the introduction, or just to do a recap of what we have been talking about all this along. We have been talking about the Mulenge as a place, as a person, and as a tradition, and the ancestral heritage of the people or indigenous people called the Bafuliru that are living in the region called Uvira in the province of South Kivu in eastern Congo or DRC. And Mulenge is also a concept or a right that the Banyarwanda population, which are many of them are Congolese today, but they are Congolese of Rwandese origin, but they are living also in the same area. But the Banyarwanda are claiming this right, this place Mulenge, as their ancestral land. And so we have been trying to explain to our viewers, you my viewers, what Mulenge is and what is not, and who between the Bafuliru and the Banyarwanda who has the right to claim the ownership. And so we are now at part 20. So if you go, I invite you to go back and review all the 19 parts that we already posted on our channel, and try to understand where and how the conflict started, and why the Bafuliru are not ready. They are not ready to cede or to give away their ancestral right, because the Banyarwanda are lobbying the international community, because an ancestral right, it is not given, it is not sold, it is not contracted, it is passed through generation to generation. And so the Banyarwanda tribe who came from Rwanda are claiming that right, when they know that they have no right whatsoever to that place, to the language of that place, or to the population of that place. That's what we have been doing. So today we'll continue to talk about the Mobutu syndrome. We said last time that the Mobutu syndrome is that foolish and stupid idea or teaching that the Banyarwanda are spreading around the globe, that any evil activities or any suffering that they are subject to is somebody else's fault, that it is never their fault. So they are not responsible for any actions, any problem that they are facing. Everything that they are facing is caused by somebody else. Namely, if it is not the international community, if it is not the Mobutu, if it is not the European or the Western countries, if it is not the government, then it is the indigenous people, namely the Bavira, the Bafulero, the Babembe, the Barega, and at the extension the Bashi. But we know, we demonstrated that it is not true. And so today, as we continue to speak about the Mobutu syndrome, we are going to visit or revisit the constitutions and the law that Mobutu enacted in 1971 and 1972, and also which laws were overridden by the National Assembly in 1981. But before we go to Mobutu, we have to remember that Mobutu was just one person. He was just a dictator, and everything that he said or he enacted just to for his interest. And so when we blame Mobutu for those two laws, the law of 1971 and 1972, we forget that there were his predecessor already who enacted some laws or passed some resolutions regarding the population of, or the nation of Rwanda-Urundi, or les ressortissants du Rwanda-Urundi. And what are those laws? The law recognized, those resolutions recognized the population of Burundi and Rwanda as a people with a culture, a language, a country, a king, which we know that the king and the country were on the other side of the border, which is to this day on the other side of the Lake Kivu and the Ruzizi River. So they were considered as such during the Congolese Roundtable of January-February 1916 in Brussels, in Belgium, and they were considered as such during the first elections of Member of Congress in May 1960. So when Mobutu seized power in 1965, November 1965, the Constitution of August 1964 was already in effect. It was already promulgated, and the decree law of September 18, 1965 was already also passed. So Mobutu here, in a sense, did not remove or deny any nationality to any people. When Mobutu enacted the law in 1971 and 1972, he did not remove or did not deny any nationality to anybody. He was, even if we consider, if we look into this law very well, we found out that Mobutu was even very, very generous toward the Banyarwanda than his predecessor. So the Congolese Roundtable of January-February determined the fate of the Banyarwanda and did not consider them as Congolese, but as a separate foreign population living on Congolese soil. The Constitution of Lualaba as well, of August 1964, never considered the Banyarwanda as Congolese because they lacked legitimacy. And here are some facts. For example, if we read that constitution, the Constitution of 1964, Article 6, subline or paragraph 2nd, it reads, I quote, "The Congolese nationality is given at this date of June 30th, 1960, to any person whom one of his or her descendants is or has been a member of a tribe or part of the tribe established on the territory of Congo before October 18, 1908. Most of the time, most of the young scholars today, when they want to defend the case or the cause of the Banyarwanda living in Eastern Congo, they only quote this article, but they don't read the second part of it. The first part of this article says that the Congolese nationality, we are here in 1964, the Congolese nationality is given at this date of June 30th, 1960, to any person whom one of his or her descendant is or has been a member of a tribe or part of the tribe established on the territory of Congo before October 18, 1908. October 18, 1908. But the second part now reads, however, the second part reads, however, the persons spoken of in paragraph 2nd of the present article that possesses a foreign nationality at the present date are not citizens of Congo unless they introduce an individual application according to national law, and who, by doing so, lose their foreign nationality. That's what the second part says, which means that if we agree, which is also correct, on October 18, 1908, we all saw that some Banyarwanda were already living on the Congo Free State soil. But those Banyarwanda were not Congolese. They were Banyarwanda, that means they were subject of the King of Rwanda, which is before 1885, and now between 1885 and 1908, there was some population from Rwanda who crossed the border from Rwanda into the Congo, the Congo Free State. They were residing in that area, in that part of the new property by King Leopold II. They were living there, but they were not Congolese because they were subject of the King of Rwanda. And when you are a subject of a king, you are a subject for life. When you are a member of a tribe, you are a member of that tribe for life. It's something that you cannot deny your tribe. You can by some extension deny your family, but you cannot deny who you are, and what we are is determined by our belonging to a tribe. That's what Africa is all about. So the Banyarwanda were living in that area, but they belonged to the king and the kingdom of Rwanda. So they were not subject of any of the kingdoms or king that were living already existing in the Congo Free State. So we have all the time when we consider the nationality, or when we are discussing the nationality of the Banyarwanda before 1908, we have to agree that some population of Banyarwanda population were living in this area, but they were not subject, or they were not Congolese. They did not have a kingdom, they did not have a king, they did not have a territory that they could claim as their own on the west part of the border, which we know is the Lake Kivu and the Ruzizi River. They did not have, but they were residing as foreigners, which we saw and demonstrated that in the royal decree of 1891, they identified them and they named them as they were the indigenous of foreign colony, which they identify here as the colony of the other side of the river, which was then the Kingdom of Rwanda. And in 1910, now here the Rwanda-Urundi, or the Kingdom of Rwanda, is part of the German colony. So they were still identified, those people who were living in Congo, they were still being identified as the indigenous foreigner or indigenous of neighboring colony. So based on our previous expose, the Banyarwanda were citizens of the Kingdom of Rwanda, and their kingdom was never an integral part of the Belgian colony, even though Belgium was a mandatory power over the territory of Rwanda-Urundi. And also we must not forget two realities. First, you are a subject of a king, as I said, for life, because the king represents your tribe, and you are a member of a tribe for life. The second reality is that the constitution of Rwanda is clear about who is a Mnyarwanda for life, regardless where you reside. If you found yourself that you are a son or a daughter of a Mnyarwanda, the constitution of Rwanda claim you as its citizen. Whether you are in America, whether you are in Africa, the constitution of Rwanda still consider you as a citizen of Rwanda. That's how they define the constitution. And it has never changed since the kingdom that were governed by the lineage of Nyiginya, or those who became today known as the Tutsi, which we also demonstrated that the Tutsi is not a clan, it is not a tribe, but it was a social class, because the clan within the tribe of the Banyarwanda included or comprised altogether the Bahutu, the Batusi, and the Batwa today. But they were all part of one clan. If there were 8 clans or 16 clans or 18 clans, in each clan you could find today the Batusi, the Batwa, and the Bahutu. So there was no single Tutsi population that are just separate from the Bahutu. All of them were included in one clan or in all of the clans that existed in that time as today. So, of course, the Banyarwanda today deny all this reality. That's their right to deny it, but the truth remains the truth. Now, this constitution of 1964, we can say that it was the key in determining the future of the Banyarwanda residing in the Belgium Congo. Here are some facts. In 1957, in his Les Frontières du Rwanda, Urundi et le Régime International de Titel, written by Jean P, wrote on page between 124 and 145, he wrote, I quote, "The indigenous of states under mandate, for example, the native of Rwanda or Urundi, have never been Belgium subject." I'm going to repeat that again. Gentigen in 1957 wrote a book whose title is Les Frontières du Rwanda, Urundi, le Régime International de Titel. He wrote that the indigenous of the state under mandate, for example, the native of Rwanda or Urundi, have never been Belgium subject. And it is translated in French here as les indigènes autochtones des pays sous mandat, exemple des indigènes du Rwanda ou Burundi, n'ont jamais été des sujets belges. That was in 1957. Fact number 2. Joining James Hales, that we quoted in our one of the clips about the mandate commission, the permanent mandate commission, about the when to determine if the Banyarwanda, the population of Rwanda or Urundi, were national of Rwanda or they were part of the Congo, the Belgium Congo. So this James here is joined by Charles-Louis Closet in his 1970s book Traité pratique de la nationalité belge. At page 27 he wrote, "The indigenous of a Belgium Congo are Belgians, and the indigenous of Rwanda or Burundi without determined nationality are national of Rwanda or Burundi." At page 27 of his book Traité pratique de la nationalité belge, he wrote, "The indigenous of a Belgium Congo are Belgians, and the indigenous of Rwanda or Burundi without determined nationality are national of Rwanda or Burundi." Fact number 3. From August 1879 to June 1884, Stanley Morton Stanley was in Congo Basin, exploring the Congo, this Congo, for on behalf of King Leopold II. He set up treaties with local chiefs and with native leaders. Few to none of these tribal leaders had a realistic idea of what they were signing, and in essence the document gave all of their rights of their respective pieces of land to King Leopold II. So if someone writes this, that the treaties that King Stanley Morton signed with local leaders, that they were giving away their land. We demonstrated in the previous clips that none of these land that were given away to Stanley on behalf of King Leopold II of Belgium, none of them belonged to the Banyarwanda, because the kingdoms or the countries or the states that were signed over or away on behalf of the king of the Belgium were tribal lands. They were states with constitutions, which we know here, constitution that time was oral tradition. They have customs and traditions. And those the kingdom, they had king who were representing the tribe. And none of them were a Munyarwanda. None of them was a person from Rwanda. Though some Banyarwanda were living in those areas, in those states, but the kingdom at large were given away by the authority from the leader or the king of that kingdom. And all those kingdoms, we know that they exist. There's a list of those kingdoms that were given away to King Leopold II of Belgium through Mr. Henry Morton Stanley. The indigenous of the Congo were citizens of the Congo and had the quality of Belgium according to the organic metropolitan laws regarding the nationality. In French, Qualité de Belge de loi organique métropolitaine sur la nationalité. And the same citizens of the Congo were also Belgium subject, because they were Belgium of Africa based on the first article of the Constitution and Colonial Charter of October 18, 1908. We also saw as fact 5 that the Congolese Round Table put the nation of Rwanda aside on January-February 1960 during the talks in Brussels. Fact number 6, on March 1960, with the La Loi relative aux élections législatives provinciales, the national of Rwanda were authorized to elect their representative but could not present their own candidacy to the elections. We saw on a resolution number 11 of this Congolese Round Table that took place in January to February 1960. The resolution 11 on point C was clear that the only person who could vote were the Congolese of origin, whose father and mother were Congolese. But they did add the ressortissants of Rwanda-Urundi, or the national of Rwanda-Urundi, that they could also vote. And see if they did add those national of Rwanda-Urundi, they explained that they were preparing them for their own auto-government that were going to take place a few years later, which will not happen in 1962. And we saw all the books that we read, all the documentation that we presented here, that the national of Rwanda-Urundi were not Congolese, were not Belgium of Africa, or the Siger Belge. They were not, because they were foreign nationals living in, or residing in the Congo Free State or in the Belgian Congo. Now, for that note, we know that the French, the Belgian, and the British, who here were the mandatory power, agreed to take the mandatory responsibility on behalf of the League of Nations and submitted an annual report in reference to the territory committed to its charge. In other words, the French, the British, and the Belgian were all giving a report to the United Nations or to the League of Nations. Every year they were giving a report. They were submitted an annual report in reference to the territory committed to its charge. So the Belgium were giving a report regarding in reference to Rwanda-Urundi, because Rwanda-Urundi was committed to its charge. So if you read Walter Walbank in his Contemporary Africa, Continent in Transition, and James Greenville in the Major International Treaties, 1914 to 1973, you see how they're explaining how the mandatory power were giving those reports to the United Nations, because they were administrating this territory on behalf of the mandate or the League of Nations. So this territory, the Rwanda-Urundi and its population, they were not part of their colony. They were just administratively helping them educating them, preparing them to their self-governing that later became a reality. So as you can see, Mobutu is not in any of these laws. This fact that I just presented to you, Mobutu is not in there, or any other person. So the only people that we can imagine that can be part of the blame by the Banyarwanda, maybe it should be the National Assembly, or those who represented the Congolese, the new Congolese, or those who were fighting for decolonization in 1960. But Mobutu is not part of it, and the indigenous people or tribes are not part of it. The Banyarwanda don't see these legislators, they see their contemporaries as Mobutu and the indigenous population who oppose their colonialist behavior in Eastern Congo. So this is the introduction that I want to give you, so that as you have an idea of all these laws that were passed before November 1965, before Mobutu took power, there were already some laws, resolutions, and constitutions that were already passed, going back to 1908, going back to even the Belgium, because this law about the Congolese Belgium, or the Belgium Congo, or the Belgium of Africa, they were all passed in Brussels, in Belgium, because Congo, or the Belgium Congo, was part of the Kingdom of Belgium, so they were considering the Congolese people as part of the Belgian population. But meanwhile, the population of Rwanda, Burundi, were subject of the king of Rwanda, or the subject of the German. But since the German lost their power, or their right in when they lost the First World War I, they became entirely the subject of the king of Rwanda and the king of Burundi. So we'll stop here for today. I just want to introduce these laws to remind you that the Mobutu syndrome continues even today. Everything that is happening today, the Banyarwanda are continuing to blame others. They have no part in any of this that is happening to them. But we know from our expose, our previous expose, that they are claiming a customary right that belongs to other people. And we know that other people cannot let them expropriate their land, cannot let them expropriate their right, ancestral right, they cannot let them expropriate their tradition, because they want to become also indigenous or Congolese of origin. But we know that the constitution has some mode of acquisition of the nationality, which they can acquire it by becoming naturalized Congolese, or when their children are born in Congo, they can become Congolese. But there is this special ethnic nationality that is born, or was born before 1908, which belongs solely to kingdoms and tribes that were part of those kingdoms. And we know that kingdoms were states, countries with government, complete government, with all the structures. And Banyarwanda had one, but he was on the other side of the river, was on the other side of the lake. He was not on the west part of the lake, but was on the east part of the lake. And none of their king was part of the signatories of the treaties that Henri Morton Stale signed with the local leader in the Congo Basin. So I'll leave here, and then we hope to see you again in the next clip, which will be part B of this part 20. So this part 20, as I said, has two parts. Part B, part A, the one I just finished now, and there's part B. So in part B now, we're gonna go through all the laws, the law of 1971, what it says, what kind of category of Banyarwanda were granted nationality, and then the law of 1972, which category of Banyarwanda were granted the nationality, and why did the National Assembly or the Congress did revoke or override those two laws in 1981. There is a reason, and so we'll see that reason in the next clip. So stay tuned, review the description, comment, give us a feedback, and don't forget to share so that our children, especially, don't forget to teach your children. Every child has to know the story of his or her country, or the country of her forefather or fathers, where if you are an immigrant in Western countries, you have to know the story, because so many things are going on and many people are spreading lies around, so they don't want you to know your story, they don't want you to know your history, and they don't want you to know your language, your culture, your tradition. So stay tuned and good night.